Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our July 8th, 2026 Board of Douglas County Commissioners 5:30 business meeting. For those of you who are here with us in person, paper copies of the agenda are available at the table back there, and a full packet with all available materials is on our website also. Reviewing our full agenda, first we'll consider our consent agenda. We have 4 items on that today. After that, we will have general public comment. We welcome general public comment for addressing issues that are not on today's agenda, but otherwise related to county business. Given our limited time and the need to have an orderly and efficient meeting, we apply certain rules regarding public comments. We will do our best to enforce these rules consistently and without regard to the point of view expressed by the speaker. Each speaker will be limited to a total of 3 minutes of speaking time. However, we will accept public comment of any length in writing. Individual speakers may not donate unused time to other speakers. All comments must address topics within the jurisdiction of the County Commission. And we reserve the right to mute and remove any speaker whose comments are threatening, aggressively hostile, or belligerent. Campaigning for public office during the public comment period is not allowed. Excuse me. Please give your full name and residence for our meeting minutes if you are comfortable doing so. And please address your comments to the commission directly. We will hear from people who are in person first, then we'll look to our Zoom meeting attendees, and please use the raise your hand function online if you wish to provide your public comment virtually. Please also know that comments received by the commission during our meetings do not necessarily represent the views of Douglas County government, but we value the input. We don't usually respond to general public comment on the spot, but if you leave your contact information with county staff, we will try and get specific questions answered. After general public comment concludes, we will move on to our regular business agenda for tonight. There's just one item on our regular agenda tonight. For each action item, we will hear from staff or an applicant, followed by questions from the commission, and then we will open the floor for public comment that is relevant to that item. Once public comment is concluded, we will bring that item back to the commission for further discussion and a vote on action items. Lastly, a recording of this meeting will be available on the county's YouTube page and website. With that, commissioners, we've got our consent agenda. Does anybody wish to remove anything for questions or comments? Okay. Anybody in the public wish to remove anything from the consent agenda today? All right, I'll bring it back to the commission for a motion.
Motion to approve the consent agenda items 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great, passes unanimously. Thank you. With that, we'll move on to general public comment. Is there anybody here who wishes to provide general public comment? Come on up. There you go.
Push. Okay, start. Eric Hyde, live in Lawrence, Douglas County. I'm kind of tired. I was just on a roof trimming some branches for my neighbor's house. Got here just in time. So I had an idea, because property taxes keep increasing, and it seems unavoidable. At least the way a lot of people are talking about it. But my idea, I did some research and okay, so there's this agreement called Pilot. It's a payment in lieu of taxes. And so if you remember, Lawrence Memorial Hospital changed a nonprofit. Bert Nash changed a nonprofit. Things of this nature, but specifically, mainly the hospital and then Bert Nash. They're property tax exempt. And so and they're claiming that they help, and they do, but so if our healthcare system truly values the Commonwealth and the residents of Lawrence and Douglas County, then we should look into this pilot thing, which it's totally negotiable. Totally negotiable per law. It just they have to enter into a voluntary agreement if they want. And So, you know, I hear a lot at city commission, things of this nature here too, that there's not enough money for police, fire, EMS, streets, parks, infrastructure. And when you, if you guys were to make a negotiation, a voluntary agreement with LMH Health or even Burt Nash, you guys give Burt Nash a lot of money. I mean, they should be helping more residents in Lawrence and the county. You know, you can specifically cater it and contract it to helping police, fire, EMS, streets, even snow removal, parks cleanup, because we don't have enough parks people and even infrastructure around the facilities so that residents aren't forking over all the bills all the time with property tax increases, essentially. That's it. That's my idea. I had it last night, but I was unable to deliver it, but I'll deliver it next week at City Commission. I thought I would deliver it here, but too. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Eric. Anybody else here in person wish to provide general public comment? Any virtual hands, Sarah? Okay, go ahead and close general public comment and move on into our regular agenda where we've got one item and I'm looking at Sarah to introduce it.
Thanks, commissioners. Invite our friends from KU Innovation Park are here to talk through the payment in lieu of taxes proposal. It was discussed last year as a part of our budget process. Adam, if you want to, and Lindsay. Oh, yeah. Sure. Yeah. Sorry. I thought maybe we got that done ahead of time. Jake can kind of maybe help you get set up. We talked a little bit to KU Innovation Park earlier today as a result of the budget process and got a small presentation for them to walk through. And Brad Eldridge, our county appraiser, has been working on this project as well and is here as well.
There it goes.
Hi again, friends. I'm Lindsay Slater. I'm the Vice President of Strategic Communications at KU Innovation Park. Wait,
Adam Courtney, CEO of KU Innovation Park.
kind of double team this. So thanks for seeing us again so soon after this morning. But we're here today to share a little more about KU Innovation Park, do a quick explanation about how your public investment is used, and walk through a proposed payment in lieu of taxes or pilot framework. So our goal is simple. We want to continue the partnership with Douglas County while preserving the economic development engine this community created to help diversify our local economy. So first, let's take a quick look at what the partnership has produced. So over the past 15 years, public investment from Douglas County, the City of Lawrence, the University of Kansas, and the Chamber have helped build a system that today includes 77 companies, more than 800 jobs, and over $53 million in annual payroll. We consider those four our founding partners. Since the park's inception, we have been able to leverage the county investment to bring more than $67 million in outside funding into Douglas County. So that's an 8-to-1 return on your investment over those years. Some of those outside dollars have turned into benchtop shared lab space for the earliest of companies, a media studio for companies to do interviews or create content, and a shared prototyping space with equipment ready to go. Those were all federally funded, and we were able to use county dollars to match that, along with the fact that we've also gotten federal dollars for both phase 3 and phase 4 based on county being able to leverage those local dollars. Our companies bring in funding too. So last year alone, park companies secured more than $8 million in outside capital, and they're about to surpass that number already this year, and we're only halfway through, so that's great. And the park also contributes directly to the local government. So this year, we'll pay more than $100,000 in property taxes on our west facility, which is owned by the city and county and leased by the park to support growing companies. Since 2010, which was when that deal started, we've paid about $1.2 million in property taxes on that building, while also covering its maintenance and operating costs. So today, only one tenant remains there, and that company is expected to relocate to phase 4 when construction is complete there. Beyond the park itself, 4 park graduate companies will pay an estimated $146,000 in Douglas County property taxes this year. Last year, there was also a question about where park employees lived. So we now collect residential zip codes as we hand out key cards to give employees access to the building. And based on that information for employees located in our facilities, we estimate that about 60% of employees working in our buildings are living in Douglas County. So we do want to be clear about how public dollars and public funding supports the park. So the investments from our founding partners, again, county, city, KU, chamber, those fund our free business services, our student business analyst program, where we hire KU students to really do everything that our professional staff does with supervision, entrepreneurial education, commercialization support, and efforts to connect companies with capital, including a park initiative that we founded in 2024, the Oriad Angel Investors. So you'll see this in our upcoming quarterly report, which is due next week. But our team of professional staff and analysts have already provided over 1,100 hours of support this calendar year. That ranges from individual meetings for personalized support with our startups to group sessions on how best to secure federal grant dollars, now that those are slowly flowing again down to companies. So lease revenue stays with the facilities. So that covers building operations, utilities, maintenance, and property taxes. So that's how we view our dollars. So with that foundation, I'll turn it over to Adam to walk through the pilot framework.
Thank you, Lindsay. And thank you, Commission and staff, for having us back again today. Just to reiterate some of the things she talked about, some of the other ways that we have returns is through sales tax. Just for example, phase 4 is coming online. We're starting construction. The county gave us $225,000. We leveraged that to $22 million at the federal level. That'll be about a $55 million building, and that will be sales tax. It's not sales tax exempt, and the park itself is not sales tax exempt. So we're expecting that to produce between $2.5 and $3 million in sales tax revenue as well. But specifically, while we're here tonight, is to talk about the pilot. We talked about it a little bit earlier today. We've been talking about it at the commission level for a while now. And so we're happy to be here with a draft agreement that we worked with staff with over the last 6 months or so. And so you can see it's a voluntary payment in lieu of taxes agreement. We structured it about a 10-year period on the recommendation of the appraiser, so that we can go back after that 10-year period and review it and make sure it's working for both parties. It's accomplishing what we've set out for it to accomplish as well. It applies to mature revenue generating companies, as we discussed earlier. It'll be implemented upon current companies' lease renewals. That's the only way we can pass on those expenses to the current companies. And it'll apply to renewals for phase 4, but beyond phase 4, it'll apply to any mature company as an eligible company. And so beyond the current phase of construction that we're in, it'll be applicable to anybody else that's added to the park rolls. It's protects startup incubation and research, which are the companies that we're really trying to serve most. And that really need the support of the park. We'll have annual reporting and transparent administration. It'll be administered the same way as the other pilot agreements. The structure is this similar to the other ones, and we've drafted the agreement based on a current pilot agreement as well. And so it'll have a predictable payment schedule and financial safeguards for the park itself to ensure the park's long-term sustainability. And so you can see it starts at $2.12 in 2027 and goes all the way to $277 per square foot in year 10. And so we talk about what are eligible companies? They're mature companies, positive cash flow, and for-profit tenants. And so you can see example of eligible would be company A has 50 employees, makes a profit, and is expanding. A lot of our companies, they don't headquarter here, but they may have significant operations other places. And this is really their R&D and research facility. And so they get up to 50, but they're likely not to move their headquarters here. But that's mature operations supported by a larger headquarters somewhere else or other facilities. What's excluded is early stage startups, research-based tenants, nonprofit, and then we've excluded vacant space, not paying property tax in lieu of payments on vacant space. And so Startup B has 2 founders, 1 patent, and no revenue. We think about tech generally is like 5 years of startup. You get into bioscience, some of those are 10 years plus because of the clinical trials and all the work that needs to be done in clinical to get to commercial markets for drug development. And so we've kind of identified tech as 5 years. If it's biotech, then maybe up to 10 years there. And so those would be on a case-by-case basis. And so you can see the projections based on the current companies that we have in our system, starting with 2 companies in 2027 at about $11,000, going out to 2035 with 10 companies of the current companies to 85,000. And so that's based on the known companies that we have in our system currently. And we talked a little bit about protection of the park itself. The park does have some debt. It finances phase 3 building. It will finance the back end of its phase 4 building as well. And so we have a debt service coverage ratio. And so one of the things we're trying to protect against is defaulting on that debt service coverage ratio. And so we put some terms in there that say if we're not going to cover that, then it would be accrued but paid later once we're in a sustainable mode. And so those were important protections for the park. It supports the long-term viability of our services. It preserves the startup incubation, encourage successful companies to contribute, and then protects the long-term economic development. And I'll stand for questions.
How did you come up with the starting number of 212?
Yeah, and so that's based on the renewals. And so we're looking at mature companies as their leases renewal, adding that $2 into the lease negotiation there. And so we're passing on that expense instead of making it just a direct expense back to the park. You know, the goal, I think, is to get these companies to pay what their fair share is if they're mature companies. And so that's how that structure there from 2 to 10 is based on lease renewals of mature companies.
I guess what I meant, though, is why is it 212 and not 311 or whatever?
Oh, you're talking about the rate itself.
Yeah.
But yeah. Maybe Brad can help you. Maybe Brad, you could stop sharing there if you can't. Yeah, that'd be great.
Stop sharing?
Yeah.
Okay. I think I know tech a little bit.
Got it.
Good evening, Brad Eldridge, County Appraiser. We came up with that based on the conventional Class A office space model. And so we started with, it's roughly a little over $8 a square foot would be the market tax rate for this type of property. And in looking at most of the tax incentive properties that we have across the county, the average rebate or discount on the abated taxes is about 75%. And so we worked with 25% of what the fair market taxes would be. And we did that on a per square foot basis. So that way we could allocate it towards the eligible tenants.
Another question I had is, who's doing all the math work on this? Is that the county? Or?
It would be the county. And so if we did this, all taxing entities, I understand, would participate. And so when we have fixed payment in lieu of taxes, it is a hand tax bill that is calculated by the treasurer's office. And so the whole tax team, we'd all work together and collaborate to make sure we got those numbers accurate.
Did you come up with an estimate of how much work this is going to create for the county?
I did not, but there are other tax incentive programs similar to this payment structure. And so we have the templates and the setup already to do this. It's just a matter of plugging and playing these numbers into it.
And really at the county level, we're the only ones who really do tax distribution like this. So it really wouldn't make sense for any other governmental entity or anyone else to really do that. This is kind of part of our role with tax distribution.
We never mentioned the city. Are they doing something similar, or they're not?
I think this agreement is for all entities, and
This would be distributed based off of the tax bill for where the park is located, which would include the city of Lawrence. And
Oh, okay. So the 212 is a total.
yes. Yeah.
Right.
Not necessarily the county's share.
Correct.
Got
Yeah,
it.
so the county would get roughly 1/3 of that, of the tax bill.
Thanks.
Brad, got a question for you. When you did your BOTA presentation, we discussed the amount of resources that it does take for you to do this work.
Correct.
And we kind of kicked around the idea of an administrative fee.
Mhm.
So kind of curious if this is an opportunity to apply that administrative fee.
It could be, yeah. It's up to the agreement, how you want to plug that in, but I'm trying to think about the other agreements that we have in place. We have 2 buildings out in the East Hills Business Park that have agreements that were written in the late 2010s. I'd have to check and see how we have those administrative fees. I don't know right off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But that's something that you guys could look at and trying to build that into the agreement if that's what you'd like.
Yeah, and I think it's something maybe we could just, what would the payment that would come in, the county could take an administrative fee perhaps off of that, and then that would lower the distribution amount is probably the easiest way to do that.
Yeah.
So
Is-
it's something we can continue to refine. But yeah, Brad, I'd be interested what the other pilots have.
Yeah, we can take a look
Especially
at
if
that.
that's something that we're looking at moving towards so that we can ensure that you are properly resourced and paid for the time that the team is resourced to do, so that your hours are, properly valued.
Correct,
Because
yeah.
your team is spending a fair amount of time on this type of work. And then as we move forward, taking a look at for the BOTA work that you're doing, how we can truly value the work that your team is doing and ensure that that revenue is coming in.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
And the 10-year timeframe, then would that trigger in, 2033 or 2034 that we start looking back at this framework again to see if a new agreement gets put into place or if we're in a different spot?
Yeah, so we mirrored this off of other tax incentive programs, which typically have a 10-year time frame. And so it'll sunset in 10 years, and then you guys can, or whoever the board is at that time, will be able to take another look at that agreement and see if there needs to be any kind of adjustments. But yeah, it'd refresh at that point in time.
Question, I think, for Adam. So on determining who's eligible, you said that would be on a case-by-case basis. Who is making the case-by-case determination?
Yeah, I hope the agreement clarifies enough what we're looking at here, and then we would try to classify them and have a discussion with the county about who is mature and who's not mature. And so if there are questions, then we'd work with the county to decide who falls within that category.
Okay. And talk to me more about positive cash flow. I mean, never run a business, but do you always have a positive cash flow? Do you sometimes have a negative cash? Like, how would you determine?
Most startups have negative cash flow.
Right.
And so they raise money to support themselves until they get to positive cash flow. And so say a company raises $1 million, that might get them through 6 months or 12 months or 18 months, but they're burning capital at the beginning, and hopefully they scale to a point where they do have positive cash flow. That's what makes a successful business. But most of these companies in tech or startup have to raise funds to support the early stages that they're taking losses on.
So once they hit that positive mark, they stay positive from then on?
Generally, they would fall within that mature, first 5 years. If they're not positive cash flow, I would say they're probably not surviving anyway. And so I think there's other triggers within that. They wouldn't jump in and then jump back out, if that's what you're asking.
Okay. I have one more question about the DSCR, and remind me of the rate. Is it 1.2?
1.15.
1.15. How often has the park been below that number?
0 times so far.
Thank you.
Are there benefits to not having a positive cash flow for a longer period of time?
Are you talking about for startups?
Yes.
Certainly. I mean, if you have cash to survive, I think they could have. A lot of them are trying to scale up, and so they're hiring. And so if they raise enough money, certainly there's not the pressure to have positive cash flow. And a lot of times it's a balance of, do you want to get to positive cash flow, or do you want to scale so you can really grow and have a bigger impact? So yeah, I mean, companies make that decision all the time, I think.
Okay, so there could be the potential of companies staying under that threshold so that they can grow at a more sustainable rate for their company. And so we might see them kind of stay there for a little while so that they can sustainably grow, but they may not then clear that threshold for a while.
A positive cash flow.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think if somebody's staying below positive cash flow, it's likely because they're scaling faster than trying to maintain a certain level. If you think tech startup, if they're going to be really expanding and having the impact they think they can make with their technology, it's likely because they're hiring 8 people in to go out and sell this thing. And so they're burning capital to make the hire early to really hit go-to-market hard. So, I mean, I think they're all case by case basis. And so you could see different businesses run differently by founders, but most of the companies we're talking about are spending capital to expand and scale.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question, Adam, about I'm looking at the numbers and what you are sort of projecting or forecasting the next 10 years to look like and increases. When I look at that, it's a helpful slide and makes it a lot more tangible for me. And that's a list of all the current companies, right? And theoretically, that list will grow over time. There'll be
Hopefully,
more.
yes.
It would take time for them to become mature enough, but that list will be more than one page at some point. Perhaps, I guess one thing that stands out to me is that it's quite possible that these projections could be less in any given year because companies come to a close, right? And so I see the possibility of that.
Yep.
Can you help me understand if there's any possibility that it goes the other way, that there are more companies that mature that are not currently reflected on here, and we could realize more pilot payments that you just aren't forecasting for at this moment in time?
Correct. And you look at phase 4 is getting built now. And so that'll include another 10 to 15, maybe up to 20 companies. Some of those will be mature, and depending on how long their lease is, they could roll on in 5 years. And so, yes, that list should grow. Some of the companies that are now startup or ineligible companies should mature over this next 10-year period as well. And so that's another group. The one thing that we're trying to avoid by doing it at renewal is, pricing people out on a lease negotiation. If we get to lease and say we're adding $2 a square foot to somebody's lease, we don't want that to be a determining point whether they decide to renew their lease or not. And so we're balancing that with the rolling on of renewal leases incrementally.
Thanks. And as I do have a question, this might be for both Adam and Brad. I wanted to make sure I'm clear about, if I look at the memorandum and the description of the proposed pilot structure, that $212 per square foot in year 1 and increases annually to $277 per square foot in year 10. That sentence just kind of threw me, and I read it a few times, and I don't know if I'm the only one getting stuck on it, but I just want to make sure I understand, like, we're starting at 212, and it's helpful to understand your answer to Commissioner Dorsey's question about where that number came from based on the market rate. Is that number expected to grow year over year, or will it mature to a new rate after 10 years?
So what we did is we looked at, in the rearview mirror, things have been increasing about 5% per year on average on taxes per square foot on this type of commercial property. And so we locked in the first year and then incremented it 5% per year. And so it just compounded up to that 270 something a square foot.
Okay, got it. So the 270,
Yeah.
The way I read it first was that it would start at 212 and ultimately end up at 277 in year 10 with really small increments in between. So
Yeah, I think on
that's how
page
I'm
4.
understanding it. Okay.
Yeah.
Just wanted to make sure we weren't, yeah. Okay. I don't need to confuse it anymore. Thank you.
Each year is spelled out on the agreement. This is part of that packet for the agenda.
Yeah, that just sort of got my brain a little more squishy about it. So thank you for clarifying. Other questions, commissioners?
I have one, but we can wait until after our vast public comment if you'd like.
if you would like to wait, that's your prerogative, Commissioner Willie.
I got one other question.
Go ahead.
I've heard that Panasonic might go in the new building. Would they meet all the requirements for a pilot just starting off?
I mean, I think they're certainly a mature company. We started this process after we did the phase 4 pro forma and did the financials for phase 4 and started that project. And so we haven't implemented it on phase 4 currently. And so it would roll on as renewal if Panasonic were one of the people to come in, mostly because the financing and all that had been put together by the time the pilot had been put together. And so, if we layered it in the pilot on top of our pro forma, as we put it out when we first did the projections on phase 4, it would certainly change the calculus on that as well, and make it harder for us to finance the back end and might jeopardize some of that financing.
Any other questions for now? Okay, we'll go ahead and open this up for public comment. Thank you all. And do we have anybody here who would like to provide public comment? Come on up, Eric. I almost gave you the spoiler alert before, but I wasn't sure if you had read the agenda. Oh, make sure you press the button. Go ahead.
No, I had no idea that this is happening. This is like, start the timer. So have you ever heard that quote? It's attributed to Albert Einstein. Coincidences are God's way of remaining anonymous. So this is a coincidence. And, a lot of people don't know what God is, but it's a mystery. And what it is. Albert Einstein also said that the most beautiful experience we can have is the mysterious. So there really might be something to this pilot stuff. And yeah, it's innovative. It's an innovative idea for this county and this community. And, to be honest, I really didn't used to like the Lawrence Chamber of Commerce, but I'm starting to like them more and more, and the Innovation Park stuff too. So, I mean, yeah, just do it. Support them and continue that line of thinking with the other stuff I said too, if you can. Thanks.
Eric, anybody else here who wishes to provide public comment or any raised hands, Sarah? Okay, I'll bring it back to the commission for further discussion or questions.
I'll jump in. I've been very excited to see this. It's been a kind of a long conversation, both from us and on the park board, kind of coming to what that kind of right size is and phasing that in for the health of the park, but also kind of this giving back to the community who's supported it, and very, very favorable that the park is an excellent example of our economic development in Douglas County. The only part that gives me some pause is not the pilot itself. It's starting the pilot in the year of 2027, when we may still have some kind of funding that's actually coming from the park to the county that had not been in years past with the West bond payment. So I don't know if Sarah, if you want to speak to that. And the other thing I'm getting at is it might be worthwhile to try and, from my point of view, it might be worthwhile to talk about starting that pilot in 2028 based on this this scenario, if we don't come to a different conclusion with the West payment. And I should have let you stew on that beforehand. So.
Well, and I, Adam, if I say anything here that makes you uncomfortable, please chime in. And from my perspective, we're going to need to address some of the issues with the West facility this calendar year. So, and Adam and I have had conversations that before the second payments are due on the West facility this September, we need to come back to this body with additional information as to what our next steps are on that facility. So I'm really hopeful that we will get we're going to need some sort of action on that, I believe. So I think that'll happen this calendar year in 2026. So then in 2027, I would hate to delay, momentum on the pilot since we've made progress on this. And maybe that can be taken into consideration, knowing that we've got to still resolve what's going on at the West facility. Those are my thoughts. Yeah.
Commissioner Willie, I appreciate that question. I would share, I thought of it a little bit too before tonight's meeting. And I think especially what separates it for me is knowing that the cost of this pilot is passed through to the tenants. And so it's the tenants paying that directly, and less so. It feels a little less direct or correlated, but I appreciate that the overlap is there. Questions or comments?
Just a comment first. I want to thank KUIP for being responsive to our concerns and for gathering the data that this commission has asked for, and for working with county staff to try to find a solution. As KUIP has changed from being an incubator that spun out companies, we needed to adjust our model. And anytime change happens, we get uncomfortable because it's different. And so I just want to appreciate staff's work and KUIP's work to think about it. This has been a long time coming, as Commissioner Willie said. I mean, I can remember back to some past commissioners who aren't with us anymore, sort of asking some of these questions that started to generate some of these ideas. So these things take a long time, but it's great to see that responsiveness.
I just want to say also thank you. Thank you for working on this. Thank you for coming together and having these difficult conversations and working through this and working with Brad. I would say the only thing that I mentioned earlier that I'm interested in seeing is the administrative fee, simply because we did have that conversation with Brad and his team regarding BOTA and all the resources that it does take for him and his team to do this work on behalf of many stakeholders and many entities to provide this type of service to the community. And so if we could look at an administrative fee to support him and his staff, I think that would be a great move to move forward with, because then that provides him and his team the opportunity then to apply that to other opportunities moving forward. And it becomes a standard that we can then apply moving forward, because resources are money, and resources is time also. And it's something that he does not have the opportunity to recoup back. Thank you.
I liked staff suggestion of pulling that administrative fee off of the top, and then the rest gets distributed as taxes would be. What kind of guidance does staff need in order for us to, if we were to pass this tonight, to put in the motion that allows you the leeway to come up with that fee?
Yeah, because I guess I'd like to, if I'm not 100% clear if that needs to be written into the pilot itself. And if that's the case, then it's not, and that's the will of the commission, then we're not quite ready to pass it tonight. So but I think this commission could direct us if they want us to explore the addition of an administrative fee, that could be added to the motion. And then we could authorize the pilot once we get that research and work completed. And I could respond back to you all once we've talked and learned if I need to do it through the pilot, or if it should be some sort of MOU. That's where, I don't know. I'd want to talk to Brad Moore and legal counsel to sort of see where it belongs.
Technically, we're not a party to any of your leases, right? That this would be included in.
Right.
So maybe a MOU is a better method of agreement than.
That's why I just would like to talk to the attorney, just because I don't want anything that's maybe already in the pilot agreement as written to negate that if I don't have the ability in the pilot to create an MOU. So that's why I'd like to have a little time to research that. But I think you could probably still give me, if that's the way the commission wants to go, give us direction to explore an administrative fee and then amend pilot documents, accordingly. And then, and we can always report back if we need to make some sort of change. We can even just pop it back on the consent agenda if that's something Commissioner.
Well, an admin fee being deducted from taxes, wouldn't that really be an agreement between the county, the city, and whoever else is getting tax monies?
This is why I want to have a little more time to think about it, Commissioner, and just to make sure I do it correctly. So, and I just having not memorized every recital, I want to just make sure that we're doing it right.
I try and make a motion that reflects that.
I have a question for,
Go ahead.
actually. Of course. I got stuck on that part and now the question I had before. Oh, actually, it's more of just a comment, not specific to action on this item, but as a follow-up to the discussion in general. I think it would be interesting, Brad, you mentioned being able to look back at the language of other pilot agreements that were made in the late 2010s you mentioned. And I think we also recently, this isn't totally the same thing, but it's another version of a pilot. We had a conversation in this room about the federal dollars that we get for some of the federal lands. So I would just be interested in, and it could just be part of the a memo in the future. Maybe it doesn't have to be another presentation or agenda item, but some maybe a comprehensive list of what pilot agreements we have, so we understand the different versions of them that we have as a baseline and can consider what future ones might maybe look like in different circumstances.
Adam, I have one other question that occurred to me in your presentation. You mentioned that the Chamber of Commerce was a participant in setting this up. Was that the Chamber of Commerce or the EDC?
The Lawrence Chamber of Commerce.
Okay, thanks.
Adam, while you're there, I just want to know if you wanted to address the kind of the conversation we're having, which would mean, delaying a vote on the pilot to kind of look at some of that structure just on our end. Does that need to go back to your board, or do you have any concerns?
Unless there are substantial changes, our board approval was just to approve for us to go and negotiate with the county on final terms. And so as long as there's not major structural changes to eligibility or any of the other terms, the other party to this is this city as well. We'll need to have a review of this at some point to make sure they're comfortable with it as well.
Any concerns on the delay or the conversation you've heard?
No, and I think in terms of when the first company would roll on is Q3 of 27. And so, implementing this at early 27 really has no impact on somebody rolling on. And so we've given ourselves plenty of time to talk about this and make sure that we get it correct to implement in 27 in advance of the first renewal.
Okay, thanks.
I think we should concur or motion, or what are we looking for here?
I'd like a motion with some direction on the admin fee added to what you have in the packet, if that's where you are.
Okay, I'm going to take a stab at it. I move to direct staff to finalize the payment in lieu of taxes agreement for KU Innovation Park with the added conversation of how to include an admin fee that covers our staff time and bring it back to us for a further vote.
Yeah.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, passes unanimously. Thank you, Commissioner Willie. And thank you, KUIP. Thank you, Brad. We appreciate it. And I'm excited that this is in progress. Okay, with that is the end of our regular business agenda tonight. I'm going to sort of breeze past appointments unless I see any other commissioners unmute themselves, because I don't think we have any teed up, and go right to Sarah's memo.
Thanks, Commissioners. I've added a couple new dates for some community-based events to my memo this week. Also, just want to point your attention to a letter from the City of Eudora regarding their establishment of a TIF district. It's included in your packet. As most folks in this room know, we've been meeting every day this week in budget hearings, and we will meet again tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock for our last day of budget hearings with departments and community partners, and then begin deliberations after that. I stand for questions, commissioners.
Thanks, Sarah. Any questions, commissioners? Comments or miscellaneous items? Okay, we are adjourned. See you all at 9 a.m. tomorrow.